So you probably feel like you're doing everything right. Have a polished resume, optimize LinkedIn, sending well-written cover letters, endless applications, and you're still not hearing back. What 99% of applicants get wrong is they all follow the same rules, mass applying through job boards, relying on generic resumes, and sending out cover letters that barely stand out. By doing this, they get lost in a sea of generic applications, making it almost impossible for hiring managers to notice them. When you're doing what everyone else is doing, you're competing directly with the 99% of applicants that are on the exact same level. But if you think differently and you start to do things differently, things can change. Today, I'm going to share a story that proves the power of being unconventional and how it can be used to land your first data analytics job. Hi, I'm Jeff, and I became a data analyst over 13 years ago. I worked my way up from a temp employee to a business analyst consultant today at OptumRx, a Fortune 500 company. Along the way, I've helped friends and coworkers land data jobs by turning their resumes into interview magnets. The job market is tough right now, but I'm on a mission to help 10,000 people break into data analytics by sharing weekly and actionable insights to get you hired. If you're serious about landing your first data job, hit that subscribe button now because I'm here to guide you every step of the way. So let's go back when I was a junior in college. Back when I was in college, my music industry professor brought in interesting guest speakers because he was from the industry. One of the most interesting stories, and one that I still am reminded to this day, is somebody who was able to land their dream job. One of the most coveted and cutthroat jobs to get in the music industry, an A&R representative, artist and repertoire representative. So for context, for people who don't know what an A&R rep is, they are basically the talent scouts for record labels. They're the ones who discover new artists, shape their careers, and decide who get a shot at stardom. It's insanely competitive with just a handful of positions available, with millions of dollars and probably billions of dollars at this point riding on the talent that they find. One of the things with this person is that her journey wasn't smooth and it wasn't easy. A lot of people who come to LA, she was going the starving artist route. Her dream was just simply to work in the music industry, a dream that she just been chasing for years up until that point. She worked odd jobs. She eventually got to work at a record station, but then got laid off. Her dream was starting to crumble. She just lost her job at a major Los Angeles radio station and couldn't seem to catch a break. No matter how many places she interviewed at, she kept getting rejected and rejected because of the circumstances of her previous contract and how she got laid off. Her savings were nearly gone. And with her last remaining money, she took one final shot. She booked a trip to South by Southwest, one of the biggest, if not the biggest, music industry events in our country, in the US. This was her ultimate Hail Mary, last ditch effort. And if this didn't work, she'd have to move back in with her parents in a small town where she grew up in, which is a far cry from the life that she envisioned in the music industry in Los Angeles. So what she did next was carefully craft her resume, make a stack of CDs, old CDs for all the people who don't know. We used to burn them on CDs and then used to just hand those out before we could just store stuff on our phones. So she would burn her mixes of her best artists and music sense that she had, and then created a whole stack of them. Then she carefully crafted her elevator pitch and she headed to the hotel lobby where she knew all the top music executives were staying for the event. What she did the entire weekend was introduce herself to everyone who would come down through that elevator into the lobby, to anybody who would listen. She did all her research, she knew who to target, and she delivered her pitch and her energy, and she had confidence because this is the last thing that she was banking on. So imagine the nerves that you would have to have knowing that your whole career is riding on this, and if you don't make it, you have to go home and restart everything over from scratch and basically kiss the music industry goodbye. Her persistence and her boldness paid off. And by the end of the weekend, if I remember correctly, I think she landed over 10 job interviews at some of the most competitive and prestigious record labels in our country. And one of those interviews that she landed, she eventually was interviewing, and then she got and landed the role of an A&R rep at the legendary Capitol Records in Hollywood, which is one of the biggest record labels that we know of in California and in the whole world. That is an unconventional all-in approach that made her unforgettable in a sea of applicants who were more likely more qualified than her, but she had persistence and had a different way of standing out. I want you to take that story because in today's job market for data analytics, it's not going to be as competitive as this job. This job is one of the most coveted jobs that pays extremely well, and you get to live your life of being an A&R rep and watching music concerts like all the time. It's not going to be as hard as breaking into the music industry, but it is still competitive. Everybody is using the same strategies: online applications, optimized LinkedIn messages, generic cover letters well written by AI. So when you do what everyone else is doing, you're competing on the same level as them. And if you are not significantly better or you stand out on paper, you're going to have a tough time competing against all of these other people. So what can you do when you're competing at the same level and you can't beat those people? This is when you have to choose to be unconventional. But when you choose to be unconventional, you automatically stand out because 99% of applicants will not go that extra mile. And also go that extra mile, especially if you're not that strong of a candidate on paper. And if you were to compete at the same roles that everyone else is competing at, if you can't outbeat everybody, or at least be in like that top 10 to 20%, then it's going to be hard for you to get a job. But here is where I like to think about job applications and yourself as an applicant, like applying to college. So for the top schools, you need to have a well-rounded application. So for those who don't know, you have to have a great GPA, so good grades. But if you're missing that GPA or you're missing great test scores, you have to overachieve in another area by like a significant amount. So you probably heard those special stories of unique candidates getting into some of the top schools: Harvard, Stanford, who didn't have a 4.0 GPA, but might have gotten in by writing the most amazing, groundbreaking essay, or doing massive community service that was specialized in a very unique way, or presented a unique story or a truly unique experience that blows everyone else out of the water, or they did something that was very unique by approaching the college themselves and then doing something for the college. There's a whole different way that people can stand out in that way besides competing on the same grades, the same community service, the same boring applications that everyone is having. So you have to think about your application in the same way. If your resume, your portfolio, and your interviewing skills feels average, what is going to be your version of a groundbreaking essay? What is that version that's going to make you stand out? How can you make your application, because you're weaker in maybe experience, maybe your achievements, what can you do differently? And this can be networking, getting to know the CEO. This could be doing what that girl did and interviewed and took proactive action and then met with all the top CEOs in that moment as a last ditch effort. That proactiveness shows initiative that companies want. So you have to be able to think outside the box to be able to stand out from all the applicants that you're competing against. And then you also have to do your own mix CD by preparing a strong portfolio, tailor your resume. Maybe you put on a USB instead. Maybe you mail it and insert a unique packaging. You have to tailor your resume specifically towards the company or craft a killer elevator pitch that leaves a lasting impression. All of these tiny things, you're still going to get rejected a lot, but it will make you incrementally better and make it more likely that someone's going to take a chance on you, especially when you do not have the experience to compete against other people. This approach is scary. This approach feels bold and even intimidating and anxiety inducing for some people. But the reason it works is because 99% of people won't do it. This strategy is an unconventional way to stand out and get an interview, but remember, landing the interview is only half the battle. Now you have to think about ways to stand out during the interview. You have to think about all the other steps of the hiring process and what you can do to be different. Here's the truth: the bigger and more out of the box your approach is, the bigger the potential reward. Sure, unconventional might feel uncomfortable, but the people who are willing to be bold are the ones who will get noticed. So if you're willing to take the next steps to breaking into data analytics, remember this: be different.